episode of How to Run a Successful Business and Still Have a Life. My name is Stacey Morgan, and today's episode is brought to you by the Simply Business Summit. I know I've been going on and on about it for the last couple of weeks, but I am so excited. If you want to spend some time dedicated to strategic time working on your business, if you want to tackle the business to-dos that have been hanging over your head, and if you want to set some goals and make an action plan to actually achieve them, then you want to join us at the Simply Business Summit. It's happening at the Sea Temple in Palm Cove, the resort and spa, June 29th to July the 1st in 2022. You can make sure you put your name down right now. You can do that at simplystaceymorgan.com. Today, we're talking about leadership. You know, I love talking about leadership, and I got so much great feedback from the couple of episodes that we did about my leadership lessons. And when we were talking about, you know, great leadership leaders like Jim Collins, people who really love talking about leading people. So I decided to do a bit more talking about leading people. You know, I talk about Brene Brown a lot, and some people say that this podcast is like a Brene Brown love fest. And shout out to those of you who listen regularly enough to know that. Thank you so much. I love that. And I do love Brene for so many reasons. And she's got a brand new book that's coming out. And by the time this airs, it will probably be out and about. And I'm so excited about that. But her last book, Dare to Lead, is a game changer when it comes to leading people. And so many of us lead people not because, you know, we wake up in the morning and say, that's my calling to be leading people, but we start our own business and we realize we need some help. And when we bring more people on to help us in our business, we all of a sudden find ourselves in this position of leadership. And the way Brene talks about leadership, it really gives you some context and gives you some framework and gives you some boundaries so that you understand what your role is as a leader, what you need to be doing in order to support your team, and what things you can put in place in order to make sure that you are creating a safe space for yourself and for your team as well. In Dare to Lead, she talks about the 7 elements of trust, and we're going to be spending the next couple of episodes going through these 2 at a time. And she uses BRAVING as the acronym, and that stands for boundaries, reliability, accountability, the vault, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. So today we're going to be talking about boundaries and reliability, because they're 2 things that are so important when you're leading a team. They're so important to have as part of a really good team that works well together. And I guess we should start by talking about that. Why is it important that we lead our team well? Why is it important that we have people around us that trust us, that, you know, trust it's a safe space to come to have, you know, their source of employment? Why is it important that our employees are happy, that they enjoy coming to work, that we provide an environment for them to grow and for them to learn? And I guess it's really important from my perspective in terms of, we as an organization are all about empowering our customers, so empowering our students. But that really has to start from the top. And I do a lot of my own personal development and professional development in order to make sure that I am always learning and always improving. But it's also my role to make sure that I give my team the opportunity to be able to do that as well, so that they can achieve as much as they want to in the role. And sometimes that means that, you know, they get to a point where they've achieved all that they can, they've learned all that they can, they've given all that they can in that role, and then they move on. I know some people, when they're leading teams and they invest in people and they invest in professional development and training, and then somebody leaves their organization, they get a real kick in the guts and they, you know, it really kind of knocks them around. But for me, it's so important to understand and to remind myself that we can do what we do within our organization as best we can. And when people have learned all they can learn from us, they're going to leave, and that's okay. And that ever-changing environment gives us other lessons to learn as part of the process, because it's not always easy, you know, bringing in new people and saying goodbye to people who have been with you for a while. And we try our very best to run our business as a community. We have this incredible dance community of customers and team and clients and students that form part of that community. So when we do have people leave, it is really rough, especially when it's out of, you know, when it's out of your control and when it comes as a surprise. But hopefully by implementing Brene's 7 elements of trust, it gives you the opportunity to have a really good, transparent communication with your team, to have a really transparent working environment so people can feel free to be able to express how they're feeling, express where they're at. It gives you as a leader the opportunity to be able to express from your perspective how things are going. What are people's performance like? What is their conduct like? Are they in line with the values of the organization? Are they fulfilling all of the requirements of their role? Having that trust that goes both ways is a really important start to developing and building a really good team. And I'm hoping through this discussion, and I hope it is a discussion, I hope you can get back to me and tell me what's working and what's not working in your team, and where these 7 elements of trust really come up or fall away within your organization, because you will find as we work our way through them, some of them you think about and you'll go, oh yes, that's definitely us, we do that all the time. And some others you'll go, oh, we're no good at that. And you know, we do that as well as part of our organization. And I know I'll be sharing some of those things that we do well and things that we don't do so well as we go through this discussion as well. If you want to learn more, of course, Brene's book is called Dare to Lead. It's one of many incredible books that she has written. And I encourage you, if you haven't picked it up already and you are leading people, whether that's people in your family or people in your team, I really encourage you to pick it up and read it. You will not regret it. So let's start with boundaries. So Brene talks about boundaries in terms of making it really, really clear what your boundaries are. She says, you respect my boundaries, and when you're not clear about what's okay and what's not okay, you ask and you're willing to say no. So it's not just important that we respect the people in our team's boundaries, but we also it's also really important that we make clear what our own boundaries are, so that people within our organization and within our teams really, really understand how we can all work together and respect each other's boundaries. So for us, that means, you know, communicating in the workplace. So if we are all coming together for a function, and that's really, you know, it's going to be on a Sunday, and people spend Sundays doing other things with their family that are important to them, and they have boundaries around that. It's really important that they communicate those. It's important that when those boundaries are being communicated, that there is respect shown for the people that you're talking to, and also the people that are listening, that showing that respect for those boundaries. It's really important that if somebody sets a boundary and you don't quite understand what that's about or where that's come from, and you want to learn more, it's important to think about being able to be curious in that moment, and to be able to ask questions, to be able to make sure you're in a position where you can really, really understand where that person is coming from. And as leaders, I think often we don't do that enough. Often if somebody comes to us and sets a boundary, we kind of go off in a huff and think, oh, they're not as invested in the business as we are, and kind of have a huff and puff about it. But it's really important that people are able to say no when they need to. It's important for you as a leader, for you to be able to say no as well, for you to be able to set those boundaries. It's important, and this is a big lesson that I have learned in my business, it's important to have boundaries for our customers. In the early days of our business, our boundaries were really loose. I thought that was the definition of being a good leader, that I was open and accessible to everybody at any time. And what I've learned in running my own business is that by not setting those boundaries, I'm making it really unclear and confusing for my customers and my clients, but I'm also really sabotaging the things that are really important to me as a leader. So I had to set some pretty hard and fast boundaries. And I was lucky that I was given a situation where it was easier to do that. So when I had my first child, that was a really big turning point in my business, where I was able to say, okay, it was okay to call me at 10 o'clock at night before to ask me about jazz shoes. I mean, it wasn't, but I didn't not answer the call. So in doing that, I was encouraging the behavior. But it's now not okay to do that, because, I have a family, I have a small child who will be sleeping. So if you need to get an answer in terms of questions, then here's the frequently answered page on our frequently answered questions page on our website. Here is the email address for the office, and we will be able to get back to you within office hours. And that felt hard in the beginning, making that boundary. That felt really hard and confronting. But it was so worthwhile to be able to set that boundary, and to be able to make sure that I communicated that boundary to my team, to the customers, and to all of the people in our community. And I'm very happy to say no one's called me about the color of Jazz shoes at 10 o'clock at night for a really long time, for many years, in fact. And they, as my team have set their own boundaries with our customers and clients as well, it has followed through. They are having a lot less communication, unnecessary communication via Facebook Messenger or at night, late at night, on their own personal devices than they used to. And that is due to that boundary setting. So it's really important, not just setting boundaries amongst the team and with your leadership team, but also with your customers and clients as well. Brene then talks about reliability. So reliability is all about doing what you say that you'll do. So at work, this means staying really aware of your competencies and your limitations so that you don't overpromise, and so that you're able to deliver on the commitments and balance competing priorities. You know, so many of us have competing priorities when it comes to our lives. We've got our families and our children and our workplace and our community involvement and so many things coming at us from all different angles. But we often don't think about those competing priorities that happen at work as well, because quite often at work, we're not just sitting down and working on one project. We often have lots of things going on at the same time. And in the workplace, being able to prioritize the things that are important, to be able to really be clear on those priorities so that we don't let the rest of the team down and so that we enable everybody else to do their jobs well is really, really important. It's also important to know what you do well and what you don't do well. And in the last episode, we talked about, finding ways in which to be able to do things in your business that you're really good at, that light you up, that are in your zone of genius. And it's really important that once you learn that about yourself, you are able to communicate that with the people around you and that you know your limitations. So I was talking in the last episode about not being very good at doing all of the accounting and all of the nitty-gritty numbers in my business. I'm not going to put my hand up and tell people on my team that I'm going to have a full year budget forecast for them for the next staff meeting, because I know that's not something I'm good at. And I know that's one of my limitations. And being aware of that, staying aware of that, being able to communicate that is so important so that you don't go and disappoint people by telling them that you're going to do one thing and then actually not doing that thing at all. There's nothing more disappointing. So in your business, this might come up as, people being true to their word, people saying, I'll come for Friday night drinks and then actually turning up for Friday night drinks, or people saying, yes, I'll have that budget report to you by Wednesday, and then making sure that on Wednesday it actually comes to you. That's really important in a team setting. You want to know that people are making sure that they are being true to their word. That builds trust, and that trust is so important. It's also important in a team to make sure that you're not asking people to do things that they're incapable of completing. So that's going to set everybody up for failure. You're going to be disappointed. The person who's not doing it is going to be stressed and anxious about it, and then not being able to do it. And so it's really important that you understand not only what your competencies are, but what everybody else is capable of doing, and making sure that if there is a challenging task coming up, that you're providing support and you're providing some compassion in those moments, rather than kind of just throwing your hands in the air and storming off in a huff. I've said that a lot in this episode, haven't I? It's also important that people are capable of balancing their obligations inside and outside of work. So I talked before about setting boundaries, and that's really important, but it's also important to be able to balance the obligations that you have. So if there is a staff event that's going to happen on a Sunday that everybody has been given plenty of warning about, and they know that it's happening, making sure that you have set time aside for that, making sure that you have prepared whatever project management or whatever proposals need to be done for that date, so that your team can count on you, so that people will know that, when they rock up on Sunday, you're going to turn up too, you're going to be there, because there's nothing more frustrating than the expectation that something is going to happen and then being let down because it doesn't. So that reliability is so important when it comes to working in your business. And I think it flows through to your home life as well. So thinking about that from both perspectives is really, really important. Boundaries and reliability, just 2 of the 7 elements of trust that Brene Brown talks about in Dare to Lead. We're going to be talking about the others in upcoming episodes, but today's episode has been brought to you by the Simply Business Summit. Please join us June 29th through to July 1st, 2022 at the Sea Temple Resort and Spa in Queensland. It's going to be 27 degrees and sunny right in the middle of winter. I absolutely cannot wait. We're going to be doing things like making sure your schedules makes sense, making sure you're spending time on the things that are important to you, making sure that things are streamlined and outsourced in your business, thinking about the customers and clients that you're perhaps missing out on because you haven't prioritized marketing in your business, and making sure that you no longer lose sleep over financial worries because you've stuck your head in the sand and you're not quite sure what the numbers are that you need to know in and out of your business. We're going to be doing all of that, plus escaping and giving you a little bit of time for yourself, some time around the pool with a cocktail in hand. If you'd like to join us, you can find out all the information you need right now at simplystacymorgan.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot and share it on your Instagram story and tag me. I'm at simplystacymorgan on Instagram. And you can also send me a DM, especially if you want the direct link to our Summit sales page. We would love to see you there. If you haven't left us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, please do. And also make sure you have subscribed to the podcast on Apple Podcasts so you can listen to us on Spotify. I really appreciate your time. I love talking about all things leadership. So I hope you can join us for the next couple of episodes. Have a great week, and I will talk to you soon.